Wondering what top law students do to get great grades? Today, let me share my observations on when, how, and what top law students do when they ask questions. Also, I'll give you some tips for helping you master this important skill of asking questions. Hi, this is Professor Bo Buys. Having taught thousands of law students over 2 decades, I've noticed some of the traits that propel students to the top of the class. Inward, outward, upward. Inward transformations that help you make outward changes to propel you upward. When. Top law students ask questions throughout the semester, not just before finals. They not only bring their questions to me right after class, but they also show up at my office and email me their questions. How? These students generally come in with a list of questions which I answer for them. When my answer isn't clear, they ask follow-up questions, not satisfied to leave without a full explanation. They also tend to ask how concepts are related to each other. For example, one student in my business associations class asked me a question concerning the duty of loyalty. As I explained the concept, he then asked how breach of duty worked when making demand on the board of directors. As I went through my analysis, I saw his eyes light up as he understood what was going on. What? Students that want to learn ask all sorts of questions. When they have difficulty, they ask for clarification. Some of the questions are simple, such as not understanding the fact in a case. Others are more complex, requiring a more detailed answer. What you need to understand is that they aren't afraid to ask the question, not worrying about how it might make them look. They place learning above potential embarrassment. One student asked me a question and I told her, look, it's not going to be on the final exam. She said she didn't care about that and just wanted to understand the concept. It's wonderful to have students that are naturally curious. So how do you know when you should go ask your professor a question? First, work through the material on your own and try to get to the answer on your own. Second, if you can't figure out the answer, spend about 15 more minutes trying to figure it out on your own. Third, if you still can't figure it out at that point, stop and go ask your professor the question. Finally, if the professor's answer isn't clear, don't be embarrassed to ask him or her to clarify. When I was an undergraduate, I was completely lost in my first accounting course. It just wasn't making sense. Debits, credits, I was lost. I first worked through the problems on my own, and when I got stuck, I went to see Mr. Palguda, my accounting professor. He explained the problem to me, and usually one explanation was enough. But sometimes it wasn't, and I wasn't afraid to tell him I was still confused. In those times, he patiently explained the concept several different ways, from different angles. I ended up getting an A in his course, but boy, that was a hard A. Unfortunately, I rarely get students asking me questions. And when I do, it's almost always the top students. Recently, I taught a 2-semester course. After the first semester, about 10 students received extremely low grades. Yet only one of those students came by to my office to talk to me about their performance. Odd, really, given that they had to take me the next semester. So overcome your hesitation and ask the professor questions. If it helps, keep a notebook handy while studying and write your questions down as they pop into your head. Then go see the professor while the question is still fresh in your head. Trust me, faculty don't usually bite, and we're often glad to talk to you. If you're still afraid, send an email. Just make sure to communicate. Also, one side benefit of asking questions is that you'll build and develop a relationship with the professor. That can come really handy when you need a letter of recommendation or someone who can provide you with advice. Let me leave you with a question and give me your answer in the comments section. Why don't you go talk to your professor more often? New videos every other Wednesday, so hit the subscribe and bell buttons so you can become a better student and a better lawyer.